allthat'sinteresting.com, astrobiologist says we may have already found life on Mars 50 years ago and accidentally killed it. Written by Hannah Holtz, edited by John Kurowski, published August 29th, 2023, and it was updated August 31st, 2023. And it says, in the 1970s, NASA sent 2 Viking landers to Mars to search the planet for signs of life. Now, astrobiologist Dirk Schultz McCooch, or McCook, I guess, claims the landers did, indeed, find evidence of microbial life forms on Mars, but may have accidentally destroyed them in the process. Right. I dropped a suggestion that some people surely will find provocative, that we already did find life on Mars nearly 50 years ago, but that we inadvertently killed it. Schultz McCook, a planetary habitability and astrobiology professor at the Technical University Berlin in Germany, and a former fellow at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, writes for Big Think. The Viking landers, a pair of NASA space probes equipped with both imaging technology and instruments to test for life, touched down on Mars in 1976. There, they began conducting a series of biological tests that to this day remain the only experiments to test for life directly on another planet. Unfortunately, these tests saw contradicting results that have baffled researchers for decades. For example, one of these tests found trace amounts of chlorinated organics. At the time, these organic materials were assumed to be the result of contamination from Earth and dismissed as, at best, inconclusive evidence of life. But after subsequent explorations, like those by the Phoenix lander and the Curiosity, and also the Perseverance rovers, scientists now know that those chlorinated organics are indeed native to Mars. Schultz McCook believes that the very processes used to carry out the tests may have destroyed any evidence of life, perhaps accounting for the experiment's confusing results. He says one of the tests involved adding water to samples of Martian soil to test it for evidence of metabolism and photosynthesis. Scientists were operating under the assumption that life on Mars would be similar to life on Earth, which needs exposure to water to survive. But Mars is an incredibly arid planet. Schultz McCook said that although the dampened soil was positive for life, the introduction to water may have ultimately drowned the organic microbes, which had likely adapted to the dryness of their habitat. It would be as if an alien spaceship were to find you wandering half dead in the desert, and your would-be saviors decide, humans need water. Let's put the human in the middle of the ocean to try to save it, he writes. Indeed, in these tests, evidence of life was stronger in the dry control run, in which water was not added to soil samples. Now, Schultz McCook suspects Mars may be home to dry adapted microbial life forms containing hydrogen peroxide, which would allow the cells to draw water from the atmosphere. While hydrogen peroxide is most often associated with the highly concentrated forms used for cleaning and sterilization, many microbes in the human mouth produce it naturally, and some insects use solutions containing hydrogen peroxide as a defense mechanism. This theory might help explain another of the Viking experiments, which involved heating soil samples to separate their materials. Recent analysis suggests this process may have incinerated the organic material the experiment was designed to find. If the Martian cells contained hydrogen peroxide, Schultz McCook explains, the heat would have not only killed them, but caused the hydrogen peroxide to interact with nearby organic compounds, yielding carbon dioxide, which is likely what Viking instruments were detecting. In short, Schultz McCook argues that the processes used to test soil samples for life on Mars, and which were used to claim there was no evidence of it, may actually be responsible for the lack of evidence. And he is not the only one who has made that claim. According to the Daily Mail, in 2016, experts from Arizona State University and the National Institute of Health released a study claiming the Viking findings are consistent with a biological explanation that life on Mars adapted to survive its dry environment. In the study, researchers injected Martian soil samples from the Viking landers with nutrients and stored them in the dark for 2 months. researchers found that the Martian soil's response was extremely similar to that of terrestrial soil. Schultz-McCook says these new findings suggest the need for another mission to Mars, with the primary purpose of detecting life. I cannot wait for such a mission to get underway, he said. Listen, I don't know about you, but I surely have seen a few horror movies start with situations like this. Kind of odd that they would think that Martian soil would be similar to Earth soil. It is literally two completely different environments. But pretty interesting that they thought they were achieving something, but in reality they could have not, because it's not proven 100%. It's a claim that he's making, and it's a claim that another person made for the Daily Mail. Well, a group of people, because this was Arizona State University and the National Institute of Health. I mean, pretty big, both, so I guess I am more inclined to believe that, in fact, they did kill them off. The microorganisms that they thought that were pretty much still alive there. What's crazy is that it was with a hydrogen peroxide. It's crazy because it's Martian soil and we don't really have much information on it. We're pretty ballsy to try to do something like that without knowing the reaction that could have caused. But who knows if what we would have thought is soil is in fact something radioactive or some shit like that, and that would have just blown up and destroyed the whole setup that they had sent out to space. Mind you, this was 1976, a long time ago. Would also make sense that these experts in 2016 would, kind of agree with what Schultz was saying. Pretty interesting. I personally have seen the thing a few times already. Weird shit happens here on Earth. We don't know anything that happens on Mars, so I just feel like we should just leave it alone. We can investigate and try to answer as many questions as possible, but once we start mingling with the actual planet in and of itself, I don't know. I think that's where I draw the line. The line has been drawn. And we'll now move on to another one.